The fantasy football edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Circa Sports. Circa Sports is back with their Circa Survivor and Circa Millions contest. $14 million up for grabs. Get all the details at circasports.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday night. I'm happy to be joined by my co-host, Justin Bruni, today. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. We got 1 week of fatherhood in the books. My daughter, Amelia Jo, was born 7/7/23, so you may have been missing me last week. Thank you, Emerson, for holding it down. You absolutely killed it, per usual. So yeah, took the week off, been hanging out with my daughter, my wife, just chilling, changing diapers, curing the hiccups, rocking my baby to sleep. I got the touch.
Yes, new father over here. So it's been an exciting week for him. Yes, I was tackling the top 24 quarterbacks by myself last week. That was why, but congratulations to you, my friend. I'm happy that the daughter and the wife is doing fantastic. Good for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome experience. It was good, really fun stuff.
An awesome experience. I'm sure that is an understatement of the century right there.
Indeed.
Good for you, my friend. I had a little bit of an exciting week myself. Started at a new little fancy steakhouse.
Nice.
Getting those check averages up here. So doing that tip life right now. We will be diving into the top 24 dynasty running backs this week, though. Diving into the quarterbacks last week. We'll do the running backs this week. This is redraft rankings. We were in dynasty mode for so long, like we were talking about before the show. Redraft season is right around the corner, though. Yes, people are still doing redraft leagues. That is still the biggest form of fantasy football, even though it seems like it may be not to us analysts and people who are really into it. We got the work leagues, the friends leagues. Those still dominate fantasy football. So
1,000%.
With that, at the top, there was not much reason for debate here. That is Christian McCaffrey. Do you want to go ahead and tell the people why Christian McCaffrey is still the top-ranked fantasy football running back in 2023?
He's the safest bet to definitely clear 300-plus touches. Combine that with just his all-around athleticism and talent, the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, he's just the ultimate weapon at the running back position. Add in now another full year in the Shanahan offense. He's just going to unleash hell in your fantasy league. So definitely going to be prioritizing him at the top. I don't think it's necessary to get cute here and take, a Bijan or a Taylor or a Breece Hall over him. There might be guys that you might like more kind of like in your gut, but CMC is still the king of this league, at least in the running back position. It's an easy pick for me.
You have any concern? Okay, so Christian McCaffrey seems pretty standard at the number one. What kind of RB1 season do you think we're anticipating, though? Is it going to be a Christian McCaffrey vintage? He's dominating the league. He's well into the 20, over 20 fantasy points per game. Or is it going to be maybe more like, is Elijah Mitchell going to get into that workload a little bit? He's going to more etch it out. What do you think?
The only reason I would ever be concerned about Elijah Mitchell, who I'm a very, very big fan of, Elijah Mitchell averaged 100 all-purpose yards per game as a rookie. That's very impressive and definitely a weapon that Shanahan will still utilize. But when they're in competitive situations, you're still going to see a lot of CMC. So my only concern is that the Niners, they score a lot of points. You could see some games where, yes, late in the third, in the fourth quarter, maybe CMC isn't getting as many touches. But you and I have kind of discussed this before. the point per game average may not be like to his fullest ceiling that you may have seen in Carolina, because Carolina was never in, every game, right? They were always kind of battling back and forth. Whereas the 49ers, they're in a position where they can really run up the score on a few teams. Yeah, you may not like those weeks. You may not like the fact that he's not getting you 25, but he's still getting you 20 points per game. The safest floor for the running back position, period, even with a Shanahan offense that will look to utilize another back. You have to still take into consideration that both of them could be on the field at the same time. You could see CMC lining up at receiver and Elijah Mitchell in the backfield, or just more of kind of like a wishbone type of set where they're trying to make the defense guess, which guy is going to get the ball, or if they're just going to pass on to somebody else, like a Debo or a Brandon Ayuk or George Kittle, et cetera. So great offense, great situation, best running back in the league. Again, just the safest floor. Like, even if he takes a little bit of a dip in per game production, he's still going to be at the top of the list. He's the safest running back to be in the top 3 come the end of the year.
And that's what you just said what I always say, usually about my top ranked running back every single year, whoever it might be. I'm always just like, who are you taking over him to finish as a top 3 running back? That top running back spot might change every single year. It's hard to nail that. Somebody might surprise us, but if we're talking about who's the safest guy to be a top 3, top 5 running back in 2023, it is Christian McCaffrey. I was a little bit concerned when I was looking at the schedule. 49ers are going to be a good team.
Mm-hmm.
The schedule, the NFC West is dipping back a little bit. It's not as good
Definitely.
as it used to be. I see some easy wins on the schedule. So my only concern is that, yes, are the 49ers with their great defense as well going to coast to some easy wins here? And then they may be like set Christian McCaffrey down, save him for the end of the season. That's really my only concern. I don't think it's going to prevent him. I think he's still a very safe RB1, but yeah, maybe that caps the ceiling a little bit. Jamie, my friend, I knew when I saw some people popping in the live, I knew that had to be you, Jamie.
Gotta be Jamie.
Thank you for joining us as always. I appreciate you, my friend. Up next here, I have Austin Eckler. We had some different, but neither of us had Austin Eckler actually number 2, but just how it worked out in our average rankings.
Who is your number 2?
My number 2 is Derrick Henry.
Okay. Big, going after it. Damn.
I know it's not popular. I know he's more fading to 5 or 6, according to a lot of people. But I'll talk more about him when we get to him. But yeah, if we're talking redraft leagues and dynasty, of course I'm fading quite a bit. But in redraft leagues, if we're just signing up for one season, give me a bet. Yeah, give me Derrick Henry, the guy who had one of his best seasons ever last year.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he's 29 years old. We all know that. But in redraft leagues, I'm willing to risk it for the biscuit. But Austin Eckler comes up here at number 2. I actually had him all the way at 5. I am anticipating – I just have a little bit of a volume concern issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're switching to a Kellen Moore offense. Austin Eckler's never gotten a ton of rush attempts. Touchdown production's been driving that the last couple of years. He's been getting in the end zone quite a bit. It's just, I feel like if that usage just tweaks a bit, if Kellen Moore's going to air it out a little bit more, the touches for Austin Eckler, I still have him as my RB5. I still think he's going to have a fantastic season. I just don't think we're going to see quite that target share that he got last year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have him at number 3. I feel that, I can agree with you. I don't think he's a safe lock to get over 300 touches in this offense. They have more downfield threats now, adding in Quentin Johnston. If Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are healthy, obviously that's going to help him out a lot as well. And don't forget about Joshua Palmer. Everybody seems to sleep on him right now. I think he'll get a little bit more love as we get closer to to week 1 and you're drafting around maybe Labor Day. But Austin Eckler in this offense, I think, can still provide you very high returns with a offense that's going to take a step forward in the passing game. I believe that the downfield attacks will kind of feed into Eckler's upside a little bit, because once defenses recognize like, oh snap, like this is a different Chargers offense from, last year and the season prior, we have to, maybe not load the box as much. Right. And I think that Austin Eckler's role, just being a primary pass catcher out of the backfield, I still think is going to be overutilized more so than a lot of running backs within the top 5, like even Barkley, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor. I just think that PPR safe floor for him is still going to be very prominent in his value. So I have him at number 3. We're going off of PPR scoring here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that would be tough for me to get Henry up there because even with him taking, a handful more catches, I definitely recognize
Career high.
Yeah. No, I definitely recognize that his PPR value has risen over the last 2 seasons. But big news today, obviously, they just signed DeAndre Hopkins. The offense feels like it's a little bit more loaded, a little bit more balanced, right? With Traylon Burks, Hopkins, Chig, and of course, Derrick Henry, where the offense is predominantly going to be run through. But when I look at Eckler, I just, again, see a bit of a safer floor for someone that can easily clear, 5 or 6 catches per game. So because it is a pass-first offense and that is Eckler's, main skill set, that's not to say that he can't finish in the red zone. The biggest thing is just that safe floor with the amount of catches that he'll have per game. And then there's really no there is a lack of threat, right, for touches. Like who's gonna take the ball out of his hands in this offense behind him?
Yeah, there is no really direct threat to the running back room. I do agree there. Before we get into our third player, I just want to give a shout out to our friends over at Circa Sports. Circa Millions and Circa Survivor is back. 14 million in guaranteed prizes is up for grab. Circa Millions has 5 NFL picks against the spread each week. Just pick a different money line winner every time, and you will win some big cash potentially. Enter in Vegas, play from anywhere. Sports Gambling Podcast will be out there the last weekend of August, so come join us out there. Circasports.com for all the details. Circasports.com. Justin, what are you doing with that money, my friend, if you're winning?
Retiring. I'm going to work at a grocery store. I'm going to work at Home Depot.
As a greeter?
Yeah. I might sharpen skates,
Just to get out of the house.
Yeah, just might pick up the Gordon Bombay paycheck, quit being a lawyer, just go coach some kids hockey, sharpen skates, take my team to the Goodwill games, stuff like that.
You will find me on a beach somewhere. That is what's going to be happening to me. I'll be streaming live from the beach, and I'll be doing this. That's the only. I do not have a desire to have. This is fun. Other than that, I do not have a desire to have a job. I don't even need anything for fun. I can sit down with a margarita in my hand all day and be completely content.
That's typically what I'm doing this part of the year every summer. But having a kid will they'll change up the plans a little bit.
That'll change it up. You're going to be changing diapers and going to nice fun. Laser tag and stuff like that. You can look forward to that in a few years. That'll be where you're spending your Sundays. I don't know. Do kids even do that anymore with technology?
What's a better background noise for a podcast? Is it crickets or is it waves? Shout out to Brad and Dave. They had crickets on their podcast the other night because what was it? Brad was filming outside or something. I thought it was hilarious. Dave was sick and the crickets were louder than Dave. It was awesome.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be me if I was filming back in Kansas or Missouri. The bugs out here in Colorado, it's very thin because it's so dry. But if I went outside, it would be deafening. You couldn't even hear us talk because all the bugs going off. Oh God, I'm glad I live out here now. But anyway, our RB3 in our consensus rankings. This is me driving him up a little bit here. I have Jonathan Taylor. We have Jonathan Taylor. I'm driving him up a little bit. I think we get back on track this year. The offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles, the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. His name is escaping me because I'm always so focused on players. Syshon, yes. He created a fantastic scheme for Jalen Hurts last year. He is the new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. I thought that the Colts were better. The offense, the pieces around them were better than they showed last year. Matt Ryan was a disaster. He's clearly lost it. That caused the offense to be extremely dysfunctional. The offensive line took a step back. I think that they'll get it back together this year. Should be a little healthier. So I think we're going to see Jonathan Taylor bounce back. Now, he doesn't have that kind of PPR. He doesn't have the pass catching upside that Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey do. But I do think in the same sense as Derrick Henry, I do believe that he is locked in for that volume. He's going to get a lot of work this year, and they're not going to want to put, the ball in Anthony Richardson's hands too much. They're going to want to ease him into it. Jonathan Taylor is going to get a lot of carries, and maybe Anthony Richardson develops some dump offs to him. That isn't typically what rookie quarterbacks do. It isn't tied to running backs or anything like that, but certainly a chance. What are your thoughts? Because you had him, I believe, as your RB5.
6. I had him at 6. Guys that I have ahead of him are Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley. I really just think you're picking your own poison there. I'm pretty close with all 3 of those guys. What I like about Barkley and Chubb, well, with Chubb, I like more volume. Like I would bet Chubb is closer to 300 plus touches than Taylor is. And that's only because of Anthony Richardson. Like Anthony Richardson, if he's hitting his high value expectation as a top 10 QB, like he's being drafted right now in best ball formats, then it's going to be based on his legs. I don't think it's going to be based on his passing prowess. I do believe that he can take away some upside, especially in the red zone. And that's really my only threat to Jonathan Taylor. So that's why I have him backed up at 6. I like Nick Chubb and Barkley to be more of the focal points of their offense, whereas you may see Anthony Richardson steal the limelight more so. Now, if Gardner Minshew is starting the season, if he starts 4 or 5 games, I think you've got something there. I would definitely feel more comfortable taking him at 3 if that was the case, because then I'm under the belief that, hey, this is Taylor's offense for sure. Like, they're going to use him a lot more than I would have expected with Minshew coming over. By the way, back up to Jalen Hurts last season, so has a relationship with the new offensive coordinator. That's a very good thing. I really can't hate him at 3. I think you're just picking your own poison here. Any of these guys, like 2 through 5, I think are very subjective. I have Bijan at number 2. So like him, CMC, and Derrick Henry, those are my safest locks for over 300 touches so far this year. Those are the guys that I'm looking to prioritize the most. I do have Henry, penalized a little bit more because this is PPR. So I have some more PPR friendly guys ahead of him. But I think I have Derrick Henry at 8, and I think that's still above market. I think the market has him closer to like 9 or 10 maybe. So I still feel good about those guys. Looking at Taylor, again, very good situation. Going to be prioritized in that offense. But if Anthony Richardson is starting all 17 games, I do think that steals a smidge of his upside, especially in the scoring territory in the red zone.
I just think that, man, like, is the offense now, it could just not be very productive, but I do think this offense could probably throw around 400 times. You know what I mean? They're not going to put, I don't think, a lot on his plate this year.
Right.
I think it's going to, it's kind of going to be the Justin Fields type offense from last year, except he's not even as advanced passer as Justin Fields is. And we saw how raw that he looked last year. Right. Hopefully that looks a little better with some
the downside though for Fields last year, being very close to the situation as a Bears fan, was he had no time to get his throws downfield. Yeah. He had no time to dig into the pocket whatsoever. He was a complete impromptu quarterback last season. And the big throws that he made, most of them were from him making more time and creating more space behind the line of scrimmage by, breaking a tackle, buying himself a few extra seconds, because there are so many times that you can't get to 2 Mississippi and he's on his back. The Colts have a much better situation with their offensive line recovering from last season, more so than the Bears, even with the moves and the development that they've made on their O-line. So I think there is a much better situation for Richardson coming into this type of offense where the OC has a very familiarity with, a rushing quarterback approach, getting the ball to a good ball carrier and targeting, your A1 guy, whether it be, a Pittman or Alec Pierce.
I do. That's a very good point. Jonathan Taylor, he is a polarizing player. I've been going back and forth. I pushed him back all the way to like RB6 at one point, but I think I'm in this year. And I just think the offense is going to improve a little bit. I think he's going to get enough rushing attempts. I don't expect him to blow the door open in the pass game, but I think with Anthony Richardson getting acclimated, I really like Jonathan Taylor this year. Before I throw it to you on why you love Bijan Robinson right off the bat this year, because you obviously think he's the perfect fit with the Atlanta Falcons. You have him at number 2, just like you said. I just want to give one more shout out to our friend over at Underdog Fantasy. We are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania 4 is here, and Underdog Fantasy is giving away $15 million in prizes. Underdog Pick'em is also a great way to get down on your favorite MLB and NFL player season props. So many ways to win over on Underdog, and Underdog is available in so many states. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. And if you are still listening, we would really appreciate you subscribing, liking to Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. It would really mean a lot to us. We really appreciate it. All right, Justin.
Smash that like button.
All right. Tell me why. I have him at RB7. I just have a little bit, I feel like some running backs, we've seen Jonathan Taylor get eased into it a little bit. They don't quite get off to an extremely hot start. I do think Bijan Robinson could live up to this ADP or this ranking. and the second half of the season. But, I think if we're taking an overall ranking here, it's just, the Atlanta Falcons offense, I feel like would have to be pretty good too for him to pay off here, touchdowns, the amount of plays they're on the field. Why do you think he's set up for success in 2020?
The Falcons scored the 15th most points last season for a team that's for pretty bad. Like they can score. They can get into scoring territory. And that's really backed on the mindset of Arthur Smith. A lot of people are down on Arthur Smith. I'm much higher on him than I would say the public. We've seen what he's done before in Tennessee. He's revitalized Ryan Tannehill. He's volumed up Derrick Henry. I expect a similar type of volume for Bijan. He is one of the guys that I am lock, stock, ready to bet 300 plus touches this season. As I just said, with CMC, Bijan, and Derrick Henry. I feel that he will be the focus of this offense. And don't be surprised if you still see Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson in similar packages with Bijan on the field. I think that he's going to be utilized as a running back, as a receiver, where they're very thirsty for talent. Yes, I like Kyle Pitts. Yes, I like Drake London. But with a quarterback in Desmond Ridder, you need to build up very safe and creative play calling, right? And that's what Bijan's going to walk himself into, is a lot of touches, specifically catches. I see him getting that Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, CMC type of role. The media is also talking very similarly to Jahmyr Gibbs. But Bijan is much more talented, in my opinion. Someone that is a stronger build, more athletic, can handle red zone touches, can handle a high amount of receiving work. Like, I don't think I would not be surprised if he had 70 to 80 catches this season, because you look at the offense, you look at the quarterback position being underwhelming. Where is the ball going to go? You're not going to see a ton of downfield passing, in my opinion. Yes, I think that Kyle Pitts will have a better season. I think he's in line for a top 10 tight end season. I've seen our boss, Sean Green, say, oh, well, Arthur Smith isn't going to know what to do, with Bijan. He can't make, Kyle Pitts a top 10 tight end, except for Kyle Pitts was his rookie season. So he knows what to do with young talent. He's going to get him in there. He's going to get a lot of touches. And look at just the draft stock that he spent on him, right? Like, look how high he went. He's got to get that type of usage to really, bring home the ROI, right? The return on high investment. So I think it's lock, stock, wheels up for Bijan this season. The only threat is an injury, in my opinion. That's just not something that I'm going to bet on. So I just see that offense being very, very thirsty for an elite playmaker, and they've got one in Bijan.
The only thing I'd push back on is I don't know about the high catch mark. If you look at
70 to 80 is very high. That's a very high assessment. I'll agree.
His tape, you look at those routes he runs a very crisp route. He never took on a high receiving workload at Texas. It's college, offenses aren't set up for that. Not every college offense is set up to do that.
Right.
So it's not a huge deal. I just don't know if that's in his wheelhouse right away, that many. So that's why I push him back behind some of these guys who I think maybe get a little bit more passing work. Although Bijan Robinson, if that happens, I think RB2 definitely. He might push for the RB1 spot.
That's why I have him at 2.
What are we going to see from? I think Desmond Ridder is going to have more to do with Bijan Robinson's success, just for the amount of plays he's out on the field. If Desmond Ridder doesn't improve, he just wasn't. And he's been talked up, but he was not that good at the end of last season. He was okay. He was an improvement over Marcus Mariota, but that wasn't saying very much. So he looked like he was a 3rd round pick, I think.
But you also see a lack of investment at quarterback. They didn't draft a quarterback. Do you know who his backup is right now?
Actually, I don't.
It's Taylor Heineke. That's his backup.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I wouldn't. I would have known that.
How dissimilar is a 3rd round pick in Desmond Ridder to Taylor Heineke, who an undrafted, didn't he go to the XFL and then make a great comeback? Don't get me wrong. I love me some Taylor Heineke. I would love nothing more than to see Taylor Heineke and the Falcons absolutely smashing this league, and then watching Heineke smash Busch Lights on the plane ride back home. I love me some Taylor Heineke energy. That's a fact. But when I'm looking at what they invested in Desmond Ridder last season, when they brought in Marcus Mariota to essentially just be a bridge quarterback, they brought him in so that they could essentially redshirt Desmond Ridder and see what happens. And if you watch the quarterback docuseries, they let Mariota go as far as they could let him go. They let him, they let him reign. They said, hey, we'll see what we can get out of you. But to me, it just looked like a dress rehearsal the entire season for Desmond Ridder. So moving on to him, who's a 3rd round pick, you're always telling me, hey, follow the draft capital, right? That's one of your big MOs. Taylor Heineke's an undrafted QB, and he looks just more like a fail-safe plan. Like, I don't see this team going out and buying Carson Wentz. You would love the downfield passing game if they went out and signed him, but that's not going to happen. So the fact that they haven't gone and sought out anyone in free agency, they didn't spend any draft capital in this draft, which they could have easily done. I really like the upside for Ridder to be the guy. And he went 2-2 down the stretch last year, and 2 of those wins were at home. And they scored, I believe, 22, 23 plus points in each of his wins. So I watched some of his tape and kind of how he's developed. His footwork isn't like albeit amazing, but he can get the ball to his guys, similar to Taylor Heineke. So I think that they will go as far as Ridder will let him. But Ridder, not going to be a big downfield guy. He'll run a little bit, and he's going to mix the ball into Bijan.
He was compared a lot to Marcus Mariota himself coming out, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. Up next, we have 3 running backs and a 3-way tie, so I'll just throw them all at you here. Okay. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Nick Chubb, kind of 3-way tie in our rankings here. This is a group, a lot of volume in this group, lots of talent. Do you have a favorite? This is a pretty safe group, in my opinion. Barkley has some health issues. Derrick Henry's getting up there in age. Chubb just seemed to struggle at the end of last season. That was kind of due to lack of touchdown production, because that offense was a little bit of a mess once Deshaun Watson came back. They were having trouble getting acclimated. So a lot of people think he could have his best season to date, though. What are your thoughts on that group as I throw him up here on the board?
So I have him I have it Barkley, Chubb, and Henry, 4, 5, and 8. Of the group, like I said, Henry is the safest floor for me based on the touches. My concern from him is longevity. Do they start to pass the ball a little bit more? Do they start to give him a little bit more of a reprieve? He's 29. This team feels like a win now type of team. They have a good defense. They want to make a run in the playoffs. It's a very tough conference, however. So for me, it's tough to buy that they're going to overuse him, when they don't need to, essentially. So that's why I haven't backed up a little bit. And then also like the lack of PPR upside. I see Chubb potentially hitting record highs for his receptions this year, similar to Derrick Henry from last year, because Kareem Hunt's gone. There's not a lot of competition. I like Jerome Ford, but what I think when you're looking at him versus Nick Chubb, it's going to be Nick Chubb, every single time. Maybe Ford comes in and spoils, maybe a couple of goal line touchdowns or something like that. But I still think that Nick Chubb has a very high ceiling. Saquon Barkley going to be year 2 in the Brian Daboll offense. Like what that can offer, but I don't see Brian Daboll necessarily overloading him with volume. I could see him parked between like 260 and 280 touches, but his touches are of high value. Like, he is an explosive running back still, and he's coming off a career season as well. So I hold Barkley in high regards, but it's based off of almost like his per play explosive rate. Like he's just going to go off whenever he does touch the ball. Probably a lot of catches, probably has the most catches of that group. But yeah, Barkley, Chubb, Henry, all very safe floors for me. Like I said, I have them at 4, 5, and 8.
Agreed with a lot of what you said there. I have Derrick Henry, like I said, all the way up at 2. I'm willing to risk it in redraft leagues. He might have had his best season to date, had a career high in targets, had a career high in receptions. Mm-hmm. I just don't think what are they going to save him for? He is a 29-year-old running back. I don't think they have any illusions that Derrick Henry is going to be with them when they're going through this maybe slight rebuild, whatever you want to call it, if that's what they want to call it. I don't think they envision him being on the team probably even 2 years from now. So I think they're going to be completely willing. They still want to sell some tickets. They still want to make some money this season. I think they're willing to grind Derrick Henry without a lot of passing. They did add DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks. Still, it's Ryan Tannehill leading the offense. I don't think it's going to be an extremely productive pass unit. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins takes a few of those targets, but still Derrick Henry very highly ranked for me. Up next, I have Nick Chubb at number 5, right ahead of Saquon Barkley. If it was non-PPR, I might have even pushed him all the way up to number 4, number 3. But I do think this offense is going to bounce back. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have a big season. Although it might not be very popular, he was a top 5 fantasy quarterback 3 years in a row prior to sitting out with the Houston Texans. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the, I would say his arm ability is probably the closest thing to pure arm ability, closest thing to Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. Is he going to get back there to what he sees? What we saw in Houston, I think he gets pretty close to it this season. So I think this offense is going to be very good, and I love a running back and a great offense. I do have Barkley at number 6, and I think it's because of volume. I push back a little bit on that efficiency just because I think it has dropped off. His receiving ability has dropped off in recent years. He had that career high. He had about over 700 yards as a rookie, and it's just continually dropped off since then. Number 35 in true yards per carry, number 31 in juke rate, number 21 in breakaway run rate. He hasn't lived up to those. He was good last season. He has not lived up to those crazy expectations that we had for him. He's not a particularly efficient runner, I don't think. And that dates all the way back to his rookie year. Now, whether that was some of the New York Giants issues, is that an offensive line problem a lot of the time? Sometimes it was.
That is my firm belief. I think pre-Brian Dable was a bit of a mess.
He wasn't hyper efficient last season. He just isn't super decisive when he's hitting those holes. I don't think his vision isn't the best, and he makes some mistakes. So he's not an elite pure runner, in my opinion. He's certainly not a Derrick Henry or a Nick Chubb in that regard. We're hoping, I think for him to really live up to his potential, he's going to have to get a lot more receiving work, which he has not been getting as much the last couple of years. Although, that's still relatively speaking, as if I look at it here, he was number 5 in target share last year for among running backs. So that's great. It just isn't it isn't in that Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler area that we might have anticipated. Up next, we're jumping all the way down to number 8 because we had a 3-way tie. We have a couple pretty consensus picks here. I had Josh Jacobs as RB8. You had Josh Jacobs as RB8. Feels kind of disrespectful, though, for a guy who just had over 2,000 all-purpose yards last year. Why are we dropping him back a little bit, you think?
I had him at 7. I think it's just the downgrade at quarterback. I think that's really all it is. But I think in the same breath with that, Derek Carr in, Derek Carr out, Jimmy G in. You have to believe that Jacobs is going to be the focal point of the offense, right? Like what are they going to do to protect Jimmy? What are they going to do to build up the passing game? Start with things on the ground. My only concern is that he feels like someone who might hold out, because I don't think that him and the Raiders have the best relationship. He had a DUI situation in the beginning of, I believe, last year. I think that may have hurt potentially, their relationship a little bit. But at the same time, Henry Ruggs that same season wound up going to prison for, killing somebody. They don't drive so well, those Raiders. They need to slow down in Las Vegas. But I feel like the relationship is a bit fractured, and the contract negotiations will come down to the wire. I believe he is tagged right now. He's under the franchise tag. So that's really my only concern, is kind of the off-field stuff. If he's there week 1, ready to roll, I'm wheels up. I would maybe even move him up to 6. I just don't see how they're going to not feed him incessantly. Over 300 plus touches, I don't know, because obviously they still have weapons there. We haven't seen any action in Hunter Renfrow leaving. They obviously still have Devontae Adams. There's some vacated targets from Darren Waller. So it still feels like, they're going to pass. I mean, obviously Jimmy is very familiar with McDaniels. They have a good relationship. So I still think that, McDaniels is kind of putting himself out there. He's kind of putting himself at risk by taking on Jimmy. He wants to be right. At the end of this, narrative or end of the year, he's going to wants people to look back and be like, oh, I did the right thing, right? Like by going out and giving, Jimmy Garoppolo this kind of like bridge contract, whatever, kind of like we'll wait a year to see what happens with the quarterback market type of thing. So I do think he'll still want to pass a lot, but even when you see Jimmy passing with volume, it's going to be to the running back. Like they're not going to be overly aggressive. I think you'll see a lot of possession-esque type of throws from Garoppolo and, playbook calling from this offense. Jacobs should be a huge part of what they look to do.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, with McDaniel back in the fold, I think they'll be willing to give Josh Jacobs the rock again on a franchise tag. These running backs on this deal, they're not saving him for the future. They're not going to be saving Josh Jacobs for later on in the season or concerned about his health. They're going to drive him into the ground probably. And I don't think they're going to want to put too much on Jimmy's plate just to try to, just like you said, they want to look smart. So I think you're going to set Jimmy up for success, just like how surround him, just like he was in San Francisco, not put too much on him. So Josh Jacobs, I think, certainly going to get a lot of volume this year. I don't anticipate 2,000 all-purpose yards again, but I do think he'll be very effective. I do have him as my RB8. Here, we did tie. We definitely did get this one. You had him as RB9. I definitely know that. Tony Pollard.
Yep.
I almost want to rank him higher. I just if this is how it's going to be, I just keep thinking Dallas is going to sign somebody. I guess is what I keep thinking. Agreed. It's just because it's Tony Pollard going to get this monster workload, or is Dallas going to completely change the offense, become a pass? This crazy pass heavy attack. It's just that you don't see Tony Pollard handling consistently over 20 touches, and with CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, that doesn't scream crazy pass offense either. So I'm a little bit, I don't know what to expect from the Dallas Cowboys yet. I do think this is a potential landing spot for Ezekiel Elliott, signed late on in the summer, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, somebody I feel like there's going to end up in this running back room. What do you think?
We're like 53, 52 days away till kickoff. You got to sign somebody. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not going to be Zeke, you got to get one of these guys the playbook, man. Like, get them learning. Because, they are very hungry for that RB2 spot. Pollard finished as running back 8 last season. We have him at 9. So I don't think that's crazy. I think just based on the usage and the lack of presence of a threat behind him, I think that we're just, kind of playing the chalk here. Like, I don't think it's like some crazy take to say that he's a top 10 or should be with a top 10 ADP right now, going into fantasy season. So I really don't have much to share on him other than the fact if he's there, he's going to get a lot of touches. They're going to feed him the ball a lot. But my concern is, and why I haven't drafted like a ton of him, like a ton of volume of him and say like my best ball drafts, is he's also returning from injury. I don't really know what to expect with him coming back. I believe he had an ACL issue, right?
No, he's fractured his fibula, I believe. He had broke his leg.
Fractured your fibula. Okay.
No, maybe not fibula. He fractured his leg. He had a broken leg essentially. So it wasn't, it wasn't like an ACL tear or anything like that. Right. So I don't know if it's gonna, I don't know if it's gonna hamper him too much in the season.
But he's not like a big bouldering back either. No. He's like he's under 215, 6 foot. I like what he can provide, but when he was spelling Zeke, it felt like he was a huge opportunity, and now we are absolutely buying him at his ceiling. I think we're ranking him appropriately, but I still feel in my heart that the cost is a little high.
Yeah, and that would be, you brought up a concern, these guys who have never handled a huge workload in the past, how do they handle it? He had some productive games, but Ezekiel Elliott was still right there. Right. People say like Ezekiel Elliott, died last season. He was still like an extremely highly ranked fantasy running back by the end of the season. Yeah. So I still think Tony Pollard, I just don't know if he's just not going to command that crazy amount of the work like Ezekiel Elliott did. And that's just why I have him a bit further down.
But they have Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, and Rojo.
Yeah.
Like, none of those guys are like massive threats. Like, sure, they could come on the field, make a play or two, but there's no like guy that's going to be back there. Like, my opinion is that they're going to pass the ball a lot. They're going to push the ball down the field a lot. They have a tougher schedule. They might be in a lot more closer games than people think. They have done a good job actually reloading up their defense this offseason. I think they have kind of an underrated defense. I know it was predominantly, ranked high last year because of takeaways, but I think that they do have a very good run stopping group, and that their secondary is loaded up as well. So I think that they're going to be a competitive team, and they're going to have to pass a lot. And that's really where I see the most value in Pollard, is him taking a step forward in the passing game. And who knows? Maybe it's Malik Davis taking a bunch of carries in the red zone. Who knows? I feel like one of those backup running backs could be a huge wild card if they don't sign somebody. To your point, they're probably just letting Zeke play the market, not get the money that he wants. Come on back, buddy. Let's retire a Cowboy.
Up next, Najee Harris, and I like the pick. I think you had him at number 11, if I remember correctly.
10
as well. Perfect. So Najee Harris, I think we see more of a return in the middle of where he was between receptions as a rookie, between what he was last year. It could be a little bounce back. I think the offense is going to be better around him. People also forget that he was struggling. He had a Liz Frank sprain in the preseason last year. That really hampered him for a few weeks. That's when we were hearing that Jalen Warren, is he taking over type approach. And then by the time Najee Harris got healthy in the latter half of the season, that was kind of closed shut. He finished as a top 15 running back in 4 out of the last 5 weeks, regained some of that. And yeah, like I said, I think Najee Harris gets too much hate. I think, the offensive situation has been far from perfect in Pittsburgh, and he's still been productive. What are your thoughts this year? I think this offense is going to take a step forward under Kenny Pickett. Although, and still, though, they're not going to put too much on his plate. So I think Najee Harris has one of the safest volume shares in the league.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll get over 300 touches or have a high volume exposure, but he's going to be their guy. That's how you're going to continue to build up Kenny Pickett, protect the passing game, start things on the ground, and then you build from the play action from there. You still have to love what they have in the passing game to kind of alleviate some of the pressure. It's still tough to load the box with Deontay Johnson, the type of target share that he demands, the progressions of Pat Freiermuth and George Pickens. So I think the group in general is just talents are rising. Like everybody's getting better, specifically the offensive line that was retooled in Ben Roethlisberger's last season. It was incredibly weak. It got a little bit better down the stretch of last season. And that battle in the trenches, I really feel will continue to pole vault Najee Harris forward. Last season, he finished as running back 14. The season prior as a rookie, he finished as running back 3. So meeting here in the middle at like running back 10, I feel is an appropriate ranking, but I do see him having potentially top 5 potential if Kenny Pickett can really take a big step forward. His numbers are very low. The market is very low on him right now, whether it's total passing touchdowns, total passing yards. So I think that this offense could take folks by surprise. You, me, Andrew, Rob, anyone else on this network, we've just been talking about all the disrespected Deontay Johnson being parked with his ADP, I think, down like in wide receiver, I don't know, late 20s, something like that, right? He's starting to move up a little bit. I think as, again, we get closer to week 1, the public is going to be a little bit more on this team. I feel like they're kind of like an underrated offseason team right now. And Najee Harris was their identity down the stretch. Once you mentioned it when Jaylen Warren, when all the news is starting to come out like, oh, it could be the big week where Jaylen Warren takes over. No, Najee said, shut that noise down. Shut it down. He got rid of it, had a very strong finish to the season. I'm looking at his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, his 8 last games. He had 3, 4, 5, 6 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. So 7 touchdowns in his last 8 games. If you look at the front end of his season, I think the week 1, he had like 10 carries for 23 yards, right? We essentially like your week 4 preseason game. Like they did not let him off the leash early. They were trying to, I feel like, balance it out between him and Kenny Pickett. Once they realized, hey, Najee can do this. Najee can be our guy. They gave him the reins again. I feel like that's going to be how we're going to start the season.
Like I said, he wasn't healthy at the beginning of last year. He was, right. That he had a metal plate in his foot. So, that's going to hamper you. So I think, once Najee Harris got healthy, I think he got his workload back. And I think, even safer than, Tony Pollard, for example, even safer than, okay, maybe not than the rest of the guys on this, but that's why he's ranked so high, is because he's going to have, I think, very safe volume this year. And, it's boring, but the number one correlation between fantasy points and running back production is opportunity and the amount of volume that you get. All right. Up next, we have Ramondre Stevenson. This one I don't know what to do with. This is me. The talent profile, the 4th round draft capital. It has me always fading away a little bit. I was a little bit nervous what I saw last year, the last couple games last year. Damian Harris taking some work. Ramondre Stevenson wasn't very healthy though. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Are we finally going to see the Patriots let somebody take the reins here, or is he going to have more of a set role like previous Patriots running backs?
I don't think it's Pierre Strong season. I do always have that inkling in the back of my head, like, will Bill Belichick allow me to have success in fantasy? This might just be the year. This might just be the year he just lets his guy go after it. Stevenson has been a fan favorite, especially like in weekly DFS and best ball type of drafting. He was getting flashy last year. I'll trust it. I'm really just trusting it based off of what I see from Stevenson and not anything from the play calling, the bad quarterback play. They're just not an offense that I trust. And to me, he is the most talented player in the offense. You really can't convince me otherwise. So that's why I still have him so high. Did you have him at number 11 as well?
I had him at number 13.
Okay, so I have him in running back 1 territory. It's obviously on the back end of it. I could see him finishing higher than this, but I guess it's just those doubts about the Belichick-led offense and, you know, how they were kind of going back and forth with coordinators. They were going back and forth with quarterbacks last season. Is Mac Jones really their guy? Is Bailey Zappi going to come in and take over at some point this season? I can't answer those questions. I really don't know. This offense is consistently an enigma to me when I'm trying to, you know, project what they can provide, project what they can do for me in fantasy. I'll ride with him because I believe in him. I don't believe in the offense, though. That's what's most concerning to me. So again, a situation where I feel my ranking is appropriate, but again, I still feel I'm exposing myself to some risk, and I like some of the other names around him, like Najee, like a Breece Hall, like an Aaron Jones still. So like the player, don't love the situation.
You know, Ramondre Stevenson has nice hands. Like he catches the ball. Not particularly great once I think he does catch the ball. And I think maybe that's why the Patriots were looking at Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft. And that was why maybe they were rumored to get him. My worry is that, you know, I know he had that pass catching role with Damian Harris last year, but what if he's a big guy. What if they kind of move him into that more grinder role and we see Pierre Strong or one of those guys kind of take that pass catching role? And that's kind of my concern. And the offense isn't that great anyway. So if you have some volume concerns and the offense isn't that good, that's why he's right outside of RB1 territory for me. But I think that's fairly on line with consensus. And I think that's where he goes in underdog drafts too, maybe a couple spots higher. But
right.
Ramondre Stevenson, RB1 for us. Up next, and I'm glad we're in lockstep here because the hate has gone too far. Kenneth Walker, number 12. I think where did you have him a couple spots lower?
I still have him at 15. I think there's, I mean, obviously it's an RB2 territory. I still have some guys ahead of him that just don't have, like, I consider Charbonnet some competition, but I don't consider it like stiff competition. Does that make sense? Yeah, Charbonnet is going to get touches. He's going to be involved in the offense, but I don't think it's at a rate that hurts Kenneth Walker's ability to bring home profits in fantasy football. Yes, the ceiling has to be a little bit lower. You know, I think that we would be regretful to not say that, to not say like, oh, the high expectation value of Kenneth Walker isn't knocked down a bit with his presence. But at the same time, he's someone that I'm still in love with. He is a violent runner, plays with a lot of physicality, can finish in the scoring territory in the red zone. I think there's a lot to like, and I just like this offense a lot. It's just because they have so many weapons. They added JSN, they added Charbonnet. I penalize him a little bit. I think I do have him behind market.
You are actually ahead of market. The people are going crazy, I think. They're downgrading. You know, he goes in the 5th, 6th round of redraft drafts or best ball drafts. At least that's what we do. I mean, it's getting a little over the top. I don't get it. Kenneth Walker, an elite athlete, one of the most explosive runners in the NFL. When I was watching him in 2021, I thought he was the best pure rusher in college football. I see a major difference when I just look at the tape of Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker has that home run ability. He wasn't asked to catch in college. We saw that route participation increase throughout the last year. Now, maybe that's why they drafted Zach Charbonnet, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Kenneth Walker can't catch either. He has hands. So I would like to see, I just think Kenneth Walker is a step above Zach Charbonnet. I see this offense is going to be very good, but they're also not going to want to see Geno Smith throw the ball 40 plus times a game. So those running backs are still going to get a lot of work. I like Kenneth Walker a lot this year, and I'm definitely, I believe, ahead of market.
He is at 14, so you are ahead of market. I'm one spot behind.
I think you'll see that drop.
The names ahead of him that we haven't mentioned yet are Travis Etienne and Breece Hall.
That leads into our next guy, Travis Etienne, our 13th ranked running back. You are down on Travis Etienne. You have him at RB 17. Well, you know, we see. You know, do you think Tank Bigsby is going to be a threat? Because we see the Jaguars' offense. It should be very good this year. They add Calvin Ridley. You know, is that why you see Travis Etienne regressing a little bit?
I do. I think that his touches in the scoring territory in the red zone go down for sure with the presence of Tank Bigsby, who's a more physical runner, bigger body. But I think he can balance that out with more pass catching. The Tank Bigsby pick, or selection for me indicates that they want to pass the ball more to ETN. That's what him and Trevor Lawrence were doing in college. That's why they, obviously Urban Meyer played a role into bringing him in. But at the end of the day, like, that's what those two have done, right? That's what we've seen from them. And I think many were disappointed with his lack of catching opportunities. I think the presence of Tank Bigsby pushes him more to that type of role. That's not to say that Tank Bigsby is going to be your first and second down back. No, I do believe ETN leads this group in snaps, but at the same time, I think that they're going to be trying to dial him more up in the passing game and then reserving Tank Bigsby for inside the 15 and ETN more of a, in between the 20s type of running back. That's what I see. And that's why I penalize him a little bit, because of the guys that I have ahead of him. If all healthy, I expect to score more touchdowns.
What if I told you that I think Tank Bigsby has better hands than Travis Etienne does?
Ouch.
Ouch. Going back to college, I think it was a little bit of a misconception about Travis Etienne's pass catching ability. It wasn't very sustainable going to the NFL. I don't think it was a lot of screen passes, very easy, that Trevor Lawrence was throwing to him. And Travis Etienne is such a good athlete that, that's enough in college. He can get it done. It doesn't translate. I don't think to the NFL. He is not a particularly adept route runner or pass catcher. So I don't know. It could. Tank Bigsby's a big guy, so he certainly could get some early down work. And maybe Travis Etienne, maybe he's been working on it this offseason. I'm not saying he can't learn it, but he just hasn't shown it yet. Right. So I have him. Let me look here. I had Travis Etienne at my RB10, but that's more because I see him getting a lot of work. I see him getting that first and second down work. And then, maybe a few more pass catches. We hope so. But I like running backs in a good offense. I think he's going to secure a lot of work still. So I have Travis Etienne still ranked very highly. So I think
that is very high in redraft. I could see the argument a little bit more maybe in Dynasty, because he's only in his third year and he's only played. This will only be his second year, because obviously his rookie year he was hurt. Market has him at about 13. So I guess we're kind of on the in between there. Like literally, I'm on the high end, I'm on the low end, you're on the high end. Market has him right in the middle.
Yeah, and you heard me. I don't think I don't really respect his pass catching prowess in particular. I just like I said, running back, great offense, and he was securing one of the highest rushing opportunities especially through the middle of last season. Put together some very productive weeks. So I like the Jaguars to have a lot of success this year. So give me the running back on the Jaguars. Up next, we have 3 running backs in a tie, so I'll throw them at you. 3-way tie for 14 here. We have Breece Hall, Aaron Jones, and Joe Mixon. A little bit different ends of the spectrum here. Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, guys who have gotten it done for us before. Guys, Joe Mixon.
Sorry, who was it? It was Hall, offense. Jones, and Mixon. Is that right?
Hall, Jones, and Mixon. Breece Hall.
That's exactly the order I have them in. 12, 13, and 14.
I have it Mixon, Jones, Hall. And my reason for Hall is, I'm taking this into account for the full season. I don't trust running backs the first few weeks coming off an ACL injury. I think it could be till, week 7, week 8, till we see real Breece Hall. So if that's the case, that's going to hurt his total ranking. He's not, we saw J.K. Dobbins get it at the second half last season. I think we see it similar with Breece Hall this year. I think if we're taking week 8 to week 17, I think this is a bargain. But I think the first few weeks are going to drag down Breece Hall. I don't think he's certainly not a lock to play week 1. I know they positive practice reports. We hear this a lot every single offseason that this practice report comes out. So I just have my doubts about Breece Hall coming in. Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones, though, I think they've been going at good values. They're creeping up in ADP as we get closer to the 2023 season. But Joe Mixon restructured his contract, set to be the lead back in one of the best offenses in the NFL. I mean, never been very particularly efficient, but what can you do at this point? I mean, the Bengals are going cheap at running back. It's hard to see any of the guys back there at the moment. Travion Williams, whose name's Chase Brown. That was whose name escaped me. Chase Brown. He's a great straight line runner. I don't know about much else other than that for Chase Brown. He's an athlete. I didn't, like I said, I think that got it done in college. I didn't really love the vision or much else about the prospect. So I think that's why he went in the 5th round. So yeah, Joe Mixon, it was concerning to see him outsnapped by Samaje Perine in 2 of the 3 playoff games, but he's gone. So where else is this ball going to go? Aaron Jones, are the wheels going to, the wheels could fall off at any point, but this is a guy who could lead the Packers in receiving yards too. Hopefully Jordan Love is trusting. Just being honest.
No. I'm happy you said that. That's a happy laugh. I hate Christian Watson's ADP. So
yeah,
that's a happy laugh.
Christian Watson, yeah, I have my especially concerns as a mid-tier wide receiver too, most certainly. So Aaron Jones, I think, volume is king here. So is he going to get that pass catching work? Or are they going to try to turn it over to A.J. Dillon in this new era? I don't really think so. Aaron Jones still part of the team, maintained a consistent dominant share over A.J. Dillon. So that's where I have it. What about you?
So I have it Hall, Jones, Mixon. Like I said, Hall I have the highest because if he does come back, I think his high value expectations is greater than both Jones and Mixon. Excuse me. Little funny pun that he had put out on Twitter once they signed Aaron Rodgers. He said, "Man, I'm feeling better already." So while everybody is saying that they're fine, they're going to be good for week 1. Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Kyler Murray. Oh yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. I should be back at that time. If he is, I think he will live up to this ADP, if not better at a positional ranking. So there's a lot to like there from him. Obviously, the offense is going to be a lot better under Aaron Rodgers, and I still think that they're going to try to run the ball a lot. They have a pretty decent offensive line. Now, I just don't see any concern from also the threats for him. Like Abanaconda, like him, don't think he's a threat for touches. Michael Carter, been banging that drum based on his ADP. And they've even said this past week that, he's going to be our number 2 guy. So I think that's not a bad situation for Hall. Jones at 13 behind Hall. You obviously have a little bit more competition with A.J. Dillon, but another situation where I'm just looking at the best player on the offense. Christian Watson, way too expensive, going to be regressing with Jordan Love at QB based on touchdowns. Maybe he has obviously more catches because he didn't play a full season last year, but the touchdown regression is going to be major from him. Now, when you're looking at Joe Mixon, I think Chase Brown actually is a bit of a threat. That's why I have him just a little bit more parked back. I just don't see Zach Taylor letting Joe Mixon be that 25 touch per game player anymore. I just don't see it. What they've done with Williams, what they've done with Samaje these past couple of seasons, like even in the Super Bowl, they took Mixon off the field for the last play, man. That should be your high trust dude. I still to this day don't understand that. You've got one play to go. I guess they were just banking on making the play, whatever it is. But when I'm looking at these 3 guys, to me, Hall still has the biggest upside if fully healthy. Jones in a Packers offense that is going to be very middled, if not to the bottom of the league. But again, he's still the best player. A.J. Dillon is big competition, but Jones, I think his high value expectation is he can get 60 plus catches in this offense. I don't believe he's had a total like that before, but my bet is he can do it with a group this underwhelming. Mixon, someone that I've always loved, but I just don't love the situation for him. High volume passing offense. I think his competition behind him is a little bit better than people think.
Okay. Hunter says that his running backs need work. He's in a redraft league, PPR, Saquon, Pollard, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson. If you have two top 10 running backs and that's your problem on the roster, I think you're doing just fine, my man.
Yeah.
You can find your replacement. You can find that bye week RB. You can find that flex option. Since you're lacking a little depth, you can find that on the waiver wire. Once the season starts, right before the season, you're going to see some injuries pop up. You're going to see some surprises. So you're set up for success, especially early on. Just you want to focus on maybe a waiver wire. Focus your waiver wire pickups on some running backs.
Right.
Get a guy early on in the season.
If you're underwater right now and you're really looking to make some moves, just kind of based off of our board here, like guys that I'm looking at where the public is down on their competition. You look at Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. I'm sure someone drafted Tyler Algier, but you know what? I'd go far, or wouldn't go far to bet that Cordell Patterson wasn't drafted. I still think he'll be involved in this offense. Jerome Ford, I was able to pick him up off of dynasty waivers.
I think they let go. I don't mean to surprise you, but I think they let go of Patterson
today.
No, I think it was like in the last week. Let me look it up.
That would be news to my ears. I'll keep going here while you.
I think maybe it was just a rumor. Maybe it was just a rumor. Yeah. No, I don't see anything official. So maybe I was just reading rumors.
So we just talked about Breece Hall a little bit. Michael Carter probably available, probably going undrafted in your league. Who else here? Stevenson. I don't think that it's time to pick up Pierre Strong, but if like you really feel desperate, that's something I would wait on probably till you get results, because I don't think anyone's going to run to him. And then Chase Brown, who I just mentioned for the Bengals, I think he has some type of role in this offense. Kind of going back to the guys that you have, if you aren't in love with Antonio Gibson, you should be. Tony Pollard, get one of his backups. Malik Davis will be available. I guarantee. Deuce Vaughn should be available. Rojo, probably undrafted as well. Like if you're not loving your situation, shore it up with some of their backups or some other friendly names that maybe aren't being discussed in redraft leagues as often right now.
Up next, number 17, we have Jahmyr Gibbs. Number 12 pick in the draft, which was a surprise to many of us. I just think that he's back this far because, he is a smaller guy. Is he going to be able to get that kind of consistent rushing volume? Obviously, he is a particularly adept pass catcher, had 44 receptions for 444 yards in 2020-22. So do we see, I really like David Montgomery this season. I have Jahmyr Gibbs pretty close to ADP, but I do think David Montgomery is certainly going to get his. So I think that, this is a pretty reasonable ADP for a guy who might just be more in a specialized role and maybe more of an 8 to 10 rushing attempts game per guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would go as far to say 10 to 12, but yeah, I think we're on the same page there. But I just believe that this offense is thriving for playmakers outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Jameson Williams, obviously, but he's going to miss the first 6 games. That's when you're really going to see this guy have a ton of value. In redraft leagues, I kind of consider him kind of like a pump and dump after week 5, because I feel like his stats are going to be a bit inflated through that period. And then once you have him at that very high ceiling, you can toss them off for maybe a couple more pieces if you're struggling, or you're looking to build, what I consider a championship roster, right? Those are the type of moves that are going to, haul you into the offseason. So I love the opportunity for him, but I think that the opportunities are going to come from pass catching. David Montgomery will most likely be their big red zone threat, but this is another offense that I see going from more of a balanced pass run situation to being more and more pass heavy. That's why I'm willing to bet this beautiful hair against that, your hair. We'll call it what it is. Who's going to be bald this season? I've got Jared Goff. Emerson's got Deshaun Watson.
About that.
Oh, you forgot?
I did.
You bet your head. Oh my goodness, Emerson.
I'd forgotten that happened. Yeah, that's crazy. Somebody's going to have a shit.
It's not going to be like, oh yeah, remember we were supposed to do that? No.
I feel so good about it. I think that's why. I just feel like it's such a safe bet that I'm not really concerned. I just know that Deshaun Watson's going to be more productive than Jared Goff this season.
If you say so. I see the Lions being more pass dominant with the weapons that they've invested in, right? Amon-Ra, 30% target share type of receiver. Jameson Williams, big, deep threat, open up the field type of guy. And Jahmyr Gibbs, who they spent a top 12 pick in, what's his weight?
You missed it. You missed your opportunity last week. You missed the quarterback podcast. You could have sold us on Jared Goff.
5'9", 200. Oh my gosh.
We're on to running backs now. You can't sell us on Jared Goff this week. Too bad. I gave him to it. He was like quarterback. Like I want to say he was outside of quarterback 1 territory last week, and that was your fault for missing it.
Whatever, man. I've been seeing Deshaun Watson go in the back end of round 2 in dynasty leagues. You punk, taking him at 6.
He should be going. He should be going, 6, easy.
Yeah, but he doesn't go there. He doesn't go there.
He does not. I've never seen him go that late. I've seen in the few dynasty leagues I've done, they are savvy drafters I've been drafting with, but usually he goes at least in the late first round. Maybe I've seen him go once.
Middle second for me. That's what I'm seeing. So
I think people are, they're letting their hate for good reasons make that decision. And if you don't want Deshaun Watson on your team, more power to you. I won't even argue that. But
back to Jahmyr Gibbs, 5'9", 200 pounds, right? Like he's going to be utilized as a pass catcher. That's where his value is. So again, those first 5 weeks, I think there's more booming than busting production available. And he's someone that I'm looking to flip early on. And dynasty leagues, obviously, it's a different scenario. I'm not going to be trying to do anything like that, but I feel that's where his high value is. And because they invested that draft capital in him, I feel like this team is moving more towards a pass-heavier offense.
Like it. Since we're over an hour already, we'll try to speed through these last 7 here. So, up at 18, J.K. Dobbins. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jamie knows. I saw it. We should give a shout out to Jamie. Yeah, Jamie knows that this is a crazy take. Your crazy Jared Goff takes.
Crazy take. We'll see who's bald, buddy.
Next up, though, is J.K. Dobbins, 19 Rashad White, 20 Dameon Pierce. So once again, 18 J.K. Dobbins, 19 Rashad White, 20 Dameon Pierce. Your thoughts on those guys?
Can you put them on the board just so I can, have it a little bit more clear? I think I'm not sure how I have it set up, but I think I like Rashad White the most of that group. White, you said it was Dobbins, White, and who?
I think you do have White the highest. That's true.
Yeah.
It's Dobbins, White, and Pierce.
Do you think Sean Tucker is a huge threat to him in that offense? No. I don't. No. Right. I don't. So, like, who else is going to touch the ball? I just feel like his PPR value is going to be immense in an offense that's led by Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, or even, dare I say, Carson Wentz. The dude's been working out with John Gruden in Tampa. I got to feel like there's some type of scenario where he could land there. If I had to bet where he would land, that would be the location. But again, we just mentioned a little while ago, like we're like almost under 50 days until kickoff. So the more and more we get closer, I feel like, a quarterback signing somewhere, getting that playbook, getting adapt with the offense, they're going to be riding the bench regardless. So I like Rashad White there. I think Dameon Pierce is in line for just a tad bit of regression. I like the opportunity of Devin Singletary going there. And because that team is still going to be bad, in my opinion, I just don't believe that they're looking to let Dameon Pierce completely off the leash and let him eat like a dog that he is. So I feel like I have some reservations because that offense, while it will take a step forward, the team will not be as good and they're not going to be in as many games as people project. Therefore, I look at Dameon Pierce as kind of like that first half running back. Like, yeah, he may have good stats in the game, but I think his per snap availability is going to be lower in the second half of games. I do see that being a little bit more of a split than people may believe between him and Singletary. J.K. Dobbins just needs to be healthy, dude. Like, if he's healthy, he'll be fine. He'll probably play above that ranking, actually, if he can put out 17 games. The offense, though, for the Ravens, everyone's saying, like, Todd Monken, they're not going to run as much. They're not going to run as much. I just can't see the Ravens still getting inside the top 15 for total pass attempts. Like, I just can't see it, They've been in the bottom 5 in the league, I believe, under Greg Roman. With Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken, I like the opportunity. I like the weapons that they have there. But at the same time, I just have to believe they're going to run the ball a lot. And I also believe that Gus Edwards is a much bigger threat than the public believes. Like, he's a guy that's been there. He's been healthy. He's a Harbaugh type of guy and someone that can also finish, in scoring territory. He's a bit more of a bruiser. I think Dobbins has a reliable role. I think he's in a good spot here. He's kind of middled in the entire list, in my opinion. Not much else to say on him other than that. Like I said, I like Rashad White probably the most of this group.
Obviously, Jamie, our friend here, knows how much I like Rashad White. I anticipate maybe him getting, I think 70 or 80 targets was within his realm of outcomes. I do have J.K. Dobbins just a little slightly heavier, just a little bit safer. I like the offense a lot more. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins does not get receiving work, unfortunately, so that's what kind of caps his upside. Dameon Pierce, I don't love. There's a wasteland of running backs who were effective for an 8-game stretch. Dameon Pierce wasn't somebody I was particularly impressed with coming out of Florida. Never really was trusted there. Florida isn't, kind of has that reputation of not using their talent in recent years, so maybe that's not too surprising, but not a particularly adept athlete or anything like that. Not overly efficient last year, so if the offense isn't that great either, that's just some of my concerns on Dameon Pierce. So I have him as my RB24, so a little bit lower there. Up next here, James Conner. I have him up right around here as well, just because volume. I think the Arizona offense is going to be maybe a little bit of a disaster, but James Conner should be a very safe threat. I think Colt McCoy or whoever's back there is going to be doing a lot of dump offs to James Conner, so I like that pick a lot. I'll throw another one at you here. Miles Sanders. You did not have Miles Sanders in your top 24, and I was a little perplexed by that. Why don't you have Miles Sanders up there?
Bryce Young, when he does get in, again, I think Bryce Young, his biggest value is with his legs, providing impromptu type of running behind the offensive line. Other people believe that it's his passing prowess. I just don't see it like that. I feel that he's going to run the ball once he gets on the field. They're saying that Andy Dalton will be the week 1 starter. I'm not listening to that noise. And I think Chuba Hubbard is more of a threat to him in that offense than people believe. I believe that they want to run the ball a lot, But when you're looking at the team, it's just underwhelming to me. And some of the other guys that I had ahead, I think are still going to be in better situations. I do have Dalvin Cook at 24. I just feel that his talent on a new team, he'll get that usage, whether it be Miami or any other landing spot. I feel that he is still a top 24 back in the league. It's hard for me to park him outside of that. And I have your boy Isaiah Pacheco at 23 as well. Not necessarily like the Eagles offense in the sense where like, oh, the running backs are going to score because they run the ball, but it's similar in the sense where the team scores a lot and therefore it's a vacuum for scoring opportunities. And Pacheco is at the top of the list. So I like those two definitely still more than Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, decent talent, good situation. I like Pacheco as good talent, very good situation. I like Dalvin Cook just more than those guys, period. Just out of principle, I like him more. James Conner, or I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Connor. Bad situation, ton of opportunity.
Hunter, hit us up with that. Hunter's asking us a wide receiver question. Hit us up on Twitter about that. I feel like if you give us your full roster, we could tell you maybe what to do with that. Obviously, just giving a brief overview. That's not, your wide receivers are more shaky than your running backs were. So, Keenan Allen, I think, is your wide receiver one there. I like Keenan Allen this year, but you got some work to do other than that. But hit us up on Twitter, give us your team, and we can give you some advice, all right? Up next is another guy, up to the last two here, Alexander Madison, another guy that you didn't have listed. I have him as a low-end RB2, but come on, this is once again, this is going to be a very, very good offense. It's going to be one of the highest passing volume offenses in the league, but there's going to be some touches for the running back too. I have him as a low-end RB2, but I feel like that's not too bullish. I feel like that's a pretty safe. What do you think?
I've never been an Alexander Madison fan. This is another team I could see adding a running back. I could see them offering a friendly deal to Zeke, to Kareem Hunt, to Leonard Fournette, because you just don't have to spend on this position, right? Like, no one is running first to market to any of those guys. I do not like Alexander Madison. He is not someone that I'm going to draft at his ADP. If he's falling down the board, I could definitely buy in, but not in my top 24 conversation, not in my RB2 conversation. He's only brought you results in very short spurts of time, and it's been as a secondary role. Like, he's just not someone that I believe in, period, out of principle. Again, just not going to cut it for me. And again, this is also a team, they may score a lot, but they're making more progressions in the passing offense. This is a team that passes a lot and have loaded up on passing weapons. TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison behind the 101 and Justin Jefferson. They're going to pass the ball a lot. That's my prediction for this team. And they are probably at the top of the list for someone that adds one of these, hungry running backs that just wants to find a home. Zeke, Fournette, Hunt. I'm
trying to remember a stat I pulled up a few days ago. Or that I kind of researched myself. I believe Alexander Madison in the 6 career games, I think it's only like 6 or 7 career games that he's had over a 50 or 60% snap share. He's had over 90 rushing yards. So, when he gets out there, he ends up being productive. Now, it's not incredibly efficient. He gets a lot of touches when he does it. But if that's going to be the case, it's hard not to just like we were talking about Pacheco. If Pacheco's going to be the lead in Kansas City, Vikings offense is going to be a highly powered offense too. And if Alexander Madison's the one out there, he's going to be a big beneficiary. We'll finish up with a guy I did not have in my top 24, but you did. That is Cam Akers. There's a lot working against him. The offensive line is going to be bad.
So is the Vikings. The Vikings offensive line is atrocious.
That's true. But I do think there's going to be some more touchdown opportunities for the Vikings. That's
fair.
What are we going to get from Matthew Stafford? Cam Akers was more than I agree with that. Cam Akers, though, was in the doghouse just last season. There's a lot of ways this can't work out for Cam Akers, I think. So that's why he falls just outside my top 24. What are your finishing thoughts with our last top?
It's a similar situation to James Conner. Not the greatest situation, but better than James Conner's situation. That's for sure. That's
arguably true.
Yeah. He's younger. He's a bruising back. Doesn't have a lot of competition. Zach Evans is there. I like Zach Evans in theory, but I don't think he's someone that's just going to, take the food off of Akers' plate. That's for sure. I just see this team still having to run the ball a lot to protect their quarterback. But don't be surprised if he gets a little bit more uptick in PPR play. They haven't really done much to build up this offense. They they haven't made any big moves. So I see a lot of Cooper Kupp. I see a little bit of a mixture of, some VJ, some Van Jefferson, and some Puka Nacua.
Yeah, my concern is that, man, even if if the Rams are playing if he's not going to be out there, if they're going to be a bad offense in general, maybe not an average offense in general, they're playing from behind, they get down by a couple touchdowns right away, because their defense is not as good as it used to be. Cam Akers could be playing in a lot of bad game scripts for him. I think that without touchdown production, without a significant amount of plays, with them playing from behind, I think that could end up being bad for Cam Akers. But I had him right behind here. I think he was just a fringe top 24 guy for me. But with that,
Fantasy Pros has him as a running back 20. So I where did you have him at?
I didn't piece out my guys right after that, but looking back, I think my rankings, I have them at like 26 or something like that.
Yeah, it's really not that far off of market. We both have him behind market.
So Cam Akers, somebody I'm fading just a little bit this season. But with that, we'll wrap it up here. Justin, what are you and Andrew up to this week on the Heroes and Villains podcast?
No, I think we might do a draft, but we're going to be talking, some redraft, getting over to it. We got like I said, nearly just a little bit over 50 days. I want to say it's 53 days until kickoff. So starting to kick over to redraft season. We'll start having some conversations about high risk, safe floors, the good stuff.
The good stuff. I like that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next Sunday doing top 24 wide receivers. So that will be a lot of fun, and we'll finish it up in a couple weeks with tight ends as well. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening.